Adi Paschachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One thing I've learned about a distinction between itihasas and Puranas. Both are histories. But one difference is the itihasas, they're chronological. And the Puranas, they're not chronological. They're very logical, but not chronological. And this 3 Lives of Narada Muni is a nice example. Because in 3 different places in Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni is going to describe who he was before he was Narada Muni. So the first reference comes in Canto 7, chapter 15. As you see, there's Narada Muni seated. There's Krishna up on an elevated seat. And there's Maharaj Yudhisthira kneeling before him. The circumstance is the Rajasuya Yagya. And Krishna is invited as the principal guest, the principal person to be honored. And Yudhisthira wanted to honor Krishna in that way. And in the course of you see the number of verses, not too many verses. Narada is having an exchange with Yudhisthira. And the conversation has moved to who Narada was in his previous life. So 2 lives previous, he was a Gandharva. And the Gandharvas, they're not in the heavenly realm, but they're not in the earthly realm. They're in this in-between. Bhuvar Loka. Bhuloka, Bhuvar Loka, Swarga Loka. So they're in the Bhuvar Loka region. They interact more with the demigods. They're singers and dancers, etc. Long ago, in another Mahakalpa, which means another day of Brahma, which is long duration of time, I existed as the Gandharva known as Upa Barhana. I was very respected by the other Gandharvas. He was like a leader amongst them. I had beautiful face and a pleasing, attractive bodily structure, decorated with flower garlands and sandalwood pulp. I was most pleasing to the women of my city. Thus I was bewildered, always feeling lusty desires. Then some misfortune came. Once there was a Sankirtan festival glorifying the Supreme Lord in an assembly of the demigods. And the Gandharvas and Apsaras were invited by the Prajapatis to take part in it. So they went, and Upabarana made a big mistake. In the presence of the demigods who wanted a Sankirtan festival glorifying the Supreme Lord, he started glorifying others. Being invited to that festival, I also joined, and surrounded by women, I began musically singing the glories of the demigods. They were hosting the event, but they wanted the event to glorify the Supreme Person. Because of this, the Prajapatis, the great demigods in charge of the affairs of the universe, forcefully cursed me with these words: "Because you have committed an offense, may you immediately become a Shudra, devoid of beauty." And so it was. So see, this is verse 72. Although I took birth as a Shudra from the womb of a maidservant, I engaged in the service of Vaishnavas. So this is his credential. who were well versed in Vedic knowledge, which means he heard from them also. Consequently, in this life, I got the opportunity to take birth as the son of Lord Brahma. So this is Upabarhana, son of a Shudra, and then son of Lord Brahma, three lifetimes. And this present lifetime, as Narada Muni, he is particularly gifted in bhajana bina, his musical expression. And that's, we'll hear some more about this, his capacity in bhakti. So at a certain point in time, he became the spiritual, as the son of Brahma, he became the spiritual master of Vyasadeva. So there we see Vyasadeva high up in the Himalayas, and he was visited by Narada Muni after completing the compilation, the writing of the Vedas into 4 and so forth and so forth. So in the discussion between the two, you can see it spans over 2 chapters in Canto 1. And Vyas is asking about his previous life. So Upabarana, and then his son is the maidservant, his life as the son of a maidservant. In a previous day of Brahma, before my present birth as Narada, I was born as the son of a maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmanas, who are following the Vedic principles, the principles of Vedanta. So that's his mother paying obeisances, the little boy by his mother's side, and then the sadhus. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service. Meaning, what can a little boy do? He was assisting his mother. She was the maid servant. So she did some cooking and he would bring their food. And they needed the clothes washing and he would wash their clothes. And they needed the floor cleaned and he would clean the floor. And he would just do very simple services, serving the Vaishnavas for the whole month, the 4 months of the rainy season. Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled. I had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty, nor did I speak more than required. So these are not like, he wasn't a frivolous little boy, but he wasn't a frivolous little boy. He was a different kind. Only once, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. He's describing the stages of bhakti, the 9 stages of bhakti. He's not saying, this stage was this and that stage was that, but that's what he's doing. He's giving his own biography of how one can go from a position of a Sudra to an elevated Vaishnava in one lifetime. So different. So it starts sadhu sangha bhajana kriya. So part of the bhajana kriya was he was taking the food, remnants of food that they had eaten. He became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalists became attractive to me. So he, you're already at the ruchi stage. Oh, Vyas, remember Narada is speaking to Vyasadeva about his previous life and the previous day of Brahma. In that association, by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. Thus, listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step. So this is a natural step by step procedure by hearing and more hearing and more hearing, and his mind became very much absorbed. And they were very kind. They get him, little boys sit there, and he wasn't talkative and were not disruptive. So he just heard. Oh, great sages, as soon as I got a taste, So this is the Ruchi stage of the 9 stages of bhakti. As soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching, asakti. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted the gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental. So he's moving quickly, very quickly, in one lifetime towards transcendental realization. Thus, during 2 seasons, so beyond the rainy season, there was also the autumn season, I had the opportunity to hear these great souled sages constantly chanting the unadulterated glories of Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished. Same as what's described in Canto 1, Chapter 2. Tadora justamo bhava kama lodha dayasi cheta etara nadvitam. So the sequence of the unfolding of bhakti is being displayed in Narada's life, from a Shudra through eradication of ignorance and passion, by hearing and some very practical, simple service. I was very much attached. So this is at the heart level. I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. So service to elevated souls has some potency, and he's describing to Vyas that potency that he felt. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with my body and mind. So more than just being in their presence and being a nice little boy, he became attached, internally attached to them. And the time came where it was time for them to leave. As they were leaving, those Bhakti Vedantas, who are very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in that most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself, because he was of his nature and so forth and so on, little boy, but they gave him very elevated teachings. It doesn't say here to Vyas what those teachings were, it's just in principle. Vyas then asked, "What did you do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in scientific, transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth?" His present birth is as the son of Lord Brahma, directly the son of Lord Brahma, born from the body of Lord Brahma. Like some of the sons of Brahma were directly from his body without the assistance of his wife. So that he somehow, Narada had the capacity to remember his previous, not just a previous life, but a previous day of Brahma. Narada said, "The great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way." So this is the next chapter, chapter 6, Canto 1, chapter 6. "I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative protection. She bound me with the tie of affection." From childhood. "When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school." So he was the son of a maidservant, but he was allowed in the Gurukula, meant for Brahmanas. They didn't distinguish his birth, they saw his character and accepted him. "I was dependent on my mother's affection. I had no experience of different lands. Once, my mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time, and she died." This is Prabhupada's purport. The poor boy was being looked after only by his affectionate mother, and yet the mother was taken from the world by the supreme will in order to put him completely at the mercy of the Lord. Now, misfortune can sometimes be good fortune. We just depends on how you look at that circumstance. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. Started for the north means he's heading for the Himalayas or Himalayas. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower garlands, nursery gardens, and natural forests. He's fearless. I then passed alone through many forests of rushes, bamboo, reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. Thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river, lake, and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. So it's very like his journey. After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree in the uninhabited forest, I began to meditate upon the super soul situated within, using my intelligence as I had learned from the liberated souls. Now, it doesn't say they taught him a mantra, but they taught him a process of meditation, and the meditation was meditation upon the Supreme, with or without the use of a mantra, doesn't say. It's okay? Okay. As soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead with my mind transformed in transcendental love, tears rolled down from my eyes. So there's symptoms of bhava. Note, each of these 9 stages of bhakti are being identified. Those of you that are in the back, please come forward. I'm going to pause till you come forward because more people are coming in the back and they need a place to sit. Thank you. Well done. Well done. So he's meditating on Super Soul, as you see from the painting. And without delay, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, appeared on the lotus of my heart. Little boy. Oh, Vyasadeva at that time, being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness, so Bhava Bhakti, and there are descriptions that sometimes even unqualified persons, Bhakti Abbas or Bhava Abbas, little shadow or reflection or a little glimmer of transcendence is awarded to such a person. That's what happened to Narada in his previous life, previous day of Brahma. Being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness in every part of my body became separately enlivened. Another similar teaching. The senses of a transcendentalist can work interactively. Being absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy, I could see neither myself nor the Lord. This ecstasy kind of cleared the vision of the Lord. The transcendental form of the Lord as it is satisfies the mind's desires and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed as is usual when one loses that which is desirable. And he was searching. Where did he go? Where is he? This is like Parikshit, who we heard yesterday. I desire to see again that transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very aggrieved. So emotional states, moving, swaying this way, that way. Seeing my attempts in that lonely place, the personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all mundane description, spoke to me with gravity and pleasing words, just to mitigate my grief. And here's what he said: "Oh, Narada, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely freed from all material taints can hardly see me." So he made an exception to the rule. "Oh, virtuous one, you have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me, because the more you hanker for me, the more you'll be freed from all material desires." Key message: concentrated, focused attempts in bhakti. By service of the absolute truth, even for a few days, a devotee attained firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. Very nice. Then, that supreme authority personified by sound and unseen by eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offered my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. Now, you see there's a little horn in the lower right corner. It means there's going to be a sound. It's the sound of thunder. But it's not working, so that's okay. Here we go. Thus, I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are all benedictory. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied and free from pride and envy. So he lived the rest of his life like that. Doesn't say how many years, but he was a little boy, and he's now moving into his mature stage, and he met the end of his life. In due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Lightning and illumination. Like when there's a lightning or thunderstorm, there's a flash of light because light moves faster, and then wait a few moments, and then you hear the thunder because sound moves slower than light. So he saw the Supreme Lord like lightning and illumination occur simultaneously, having been awarded a transcendental body. So he, as we see in this illustration, there's his human body, and then he received a spiritual body, different than the human body. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 material elements, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work stopped. At the end of the millennium, this term millennium is an English phrase, the end of a kalpa, a day of Brahma. When the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, laid down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all the creative elements. And I also entered through his breathing, that is, exhalation, inhalation. And when the inhalation was going on, Narada was aware that he was being transferred, waiting for the next creation, waiting for the next life of Lord Brahma. After 4 billion, 300 million, right? Yeah. Solar years, that's the night of Brahma. When Brahma awoke to again create by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them. The transcendental body of the Lord in this case means, it was with a capital L, but it's Lord Brahma. These are mind-born sons of Lord Brahma. There's the little list here, including Narada. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the 3 divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. So there's a nice description of how he got his vina, too. As I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called the vina, which is charged with transcendental sound, which was given to me by Lord Krishna, like a birthday present or something. And because it was a gift by Krishna and he's singing the glories of the Lord, that sound vibration is all as transcendental as Krishna is. This is Prabhupada's purport to that verse. The musical stringed instrument called the veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana. And this is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same category, transcendental category. So it's not saying Narada is Krishna, Krishna is Narada, or the Veena is Narada and Krishna, but categorically, so they're in the category of tattva, of the tattva of Shuddha tattva, Shuddha sattva, pure goodness. And of the same category, they're fully transcendental. There's no tinge of material contamination. Pretty amazing. So Prabhupada uses the phrase in this purport, Bhakti Shakti Avesh. So we know about Shakti Avesh Avatar. This is just a more elaborate way of describing. Each of the avatars, Shakti Avesh avatars, they're bearing a particular Shakti of the Supreme. And Narada's bearing the Bhakti Shakti. For example, the Prithu is a Shakti Avesh avatar. What potency is he bearing or carrying, invested by the Supreme Lord? The Jiva carrying the Lord's protection potency. Lord Brahma is also in the same category. He's manifesting or carrying or bearing the Srishti Shakti of the Supreme Lord. He's empowered to create. And so forth and so on. Each of the Shakti Avesh avatars, they're carrying or they're invested with the potency of the Supreme Lord of a particular kind. And thus, Avesh, empowered. So the full term, Bhakti Shakti Aveshavatar. We just say commonly Shakti Aveshavatar. Okay. Next verse. This is the last of the series of Canto 1, chapters 5 and 6. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nescience on a most suitable boat. The constant chanting of the activities, transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. You recognize the painting. We'll hear something further about this one. This is Narada coming across in the forest a hunter named Ragari, and he was busy killing animals, not just killing, but half killing, and he turned him into a Vaishnav. Narada Muni is very gifted. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are two places where there's list of avatars. One of them, you're probably familiar with, is Canto 1, Chapter 3. A list of avatars. Not the complete list, because that's a very exhaustive list, but avatars of the Lord, those who descend. Similarly, there's a description in Canto 2, Chapter 7. And one of those avatars of the Lord is Hamsa avatar. The Lord, takes the shape of a swan. And this swan avatar became an instructor of Narada Muni. Here's the text. O Narada, you were taught about the science of God and his transcendental loving service by the personality of Godhead in his incarnation of Hamsa avatar. He was very much pleased with you due to your intense proportion of devotional service. He also explained unto you lucidly the full science of devotional service, which is especially understandable by persons who are souls surrendered unto Lord Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. So here's the classic painting. There's Hans Avatar up on this podium, and there's Lord Brahma, who's attending to hear this message, or excuse me, Narada, and then there's the four Kumaras. So these persons were all instructed by Hamsa Avatar. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 69, here we hear the personality of Godhead Krishna in Dwarka is giving his special attention to Narada, because Narada, as we know, he could travel anywhere in the material or spiritual realm. So he visited Dwarka, and he very much wanted to see the pastimes of the Supreme Lord as they were taking place. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the incarnation of Narayana Rishi, the friend of Nara Rishi, thus worshipped the sage Narada, because when Krishna was in the role of a Kshatriya and Narada is in the role of a Brahmana, so the Kshatriya is going to worship the Brahmana. Krishna worshipped Narada Muni. He worshipped the sage Narada according to the Vedic regulative principles. Welcoming him with sweet nectarian words, he addressed Narada as Bhagavan, or one who is self-sufficient, possessing all kinds of knowledge, renunciation, strength, fame, beauty, and similar other opulences. He particularly asked Narada, "What can I do in your service?" This is the etiquette of a Kshatriya or anyone receiving a sadhu, a sannyasi like Narada, elevated sannyas brahmana like Narada. Here is another reference where Brahma is instructing Narada. because Father, Son. Unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, Brahma is saying to Narada, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. That is to say, Brahma gets his powers from the source of power. And if one doesn't understand the source of power, one can easily be bewildered by his powerful activities, thinking, wow, or anyone else, wow. But anyone else that's doing something wonderful, where'd they get that something wonderful? From the source. And a Vaishnava is one who recognizes the source very clearly and regularly and repeatedly. Now we're going to go through, we're approaching a conclusion. There are different personalities. Now that Bhakti Shakti is invested in Narada, he's going to distribute it. And here are the persons who are the recipients, the short list, but a very exalted list of persons. Prahlad Maharaj, recognized, he's one of our Mahajans, and he was one of his disciples. Dhruva Maharaj, very elevated Vaishnava. Prachini Bari and the Prachetas. We'll hear something more. We'll see some nice photographs. King Chitraketu. Those of you who are familiar with the Bhagavatam, you know who he is. We'll hear something further. Krishna's father, Vasudeva. He instructed Vasudeva. He was the guru of Vasudeva. Magari the hunter, Daksha's 10,000, 1,000 sons, Sabalashvas and Haryashvas, he delivered them. Vyasadeva, Valmiki, Rukmini. He's got a list of bhaktas. He's a very powerful personality. And the Cobra and Cobbler will hear those stories. So we're going to the first one, Prahlad Maharaj. Here's a nice painting of Kayadu. Do you remember Kayadu, who she is? You want to say? Prahlad Maharaj's mother. And who was Prahlad Maharaj's father? So she's the wife of Hiranyakashipu. But when the demigods wanted to, because Hiranyakashipu was off in the forest doing his austerities, he was out of town, they came when he was doing his austerities. And they found his wife in the kingdom of heaven, because he was occupying the kingdom of heaven, because he beat up Indra and kicked him out. So they found Kayadu and they wanted to arrest her until the child was born, because it's Hiranyakashipu Jr. in her womb. And they wanted to kill him when he was born. Narada said, no, he's not. He's the son of Hiranyakashipu, but he's a great devotee. So you please entrust her, Kayadu, to his wife, to my ashram. And he took her there, and Narada is instructing both the child in her womb, Prahlad, and the mother. And when Hiranyakashipu came back from his austerities, Narada had given the benediction she wouldn't have to deliver her son until he came back, and Prahlad remembered, Kayadu forgot. Another one of the immediate students of Narada Muni, who recognizes the picture. Dhruva Maharaj. So this and that and the other and the other and the other. And after examining the determination of Dhruva, Narada gave him the means where he could achieve perfection in the fast lane. And he achieved perfection by the grace of Narada and his submission and his big enthusiasm to get what he wanted. And when he got what he wanted, by that time he had lost interest in what I want. Instead, he just wanted the personality of Godhead and the association of his devotees. That's purity. This is a painting of King Prachini Barhi. King Prachini Barhi was a Karmakanda fan. And he, was really expert and had expert brahmanas. And Narada understood there's a little spark inside, so he paid a visit to his kingdom. And King Prachini Barhi honored him in the proper way, and Narada's giving him some nice instructions. Now, one of the things about King Prachini Barhi is he had 10 sons called the Prachetas. And the Prachetas, unlike their father, they had renounced the world, and Narada paid them a visit, and they were very happy to see him, and he instructed them in the science of devotion in order to attain the stage of pure devotion. So they were very happy, as you can see. And Narada was very happy with them. 10 sons. This is a nice painting. Who recognizes the painting? Chitraketu. The Chitraketu story is a little bit long, but the short version of the long story is he wanted a son. So with his principal queens, no son. So he married another queen, and how many queens did he end up? He had married more queens than Krishna had. Some fantastic number. What someone remember the number? 10 million. That's a lot of wives, right? And guess what? There was no son. So Angira Muni visited him and said, King Chitraketu, don't you get the message? It's like not meant to happen. It's not meant to happen. Got the message? I want a son. I want a son. Okay, here's a particular fruit. You have one of your wives take this particular fruit and she'll bear a son. Oh, thank you. And so queen number one of the 999,999 other queens had a son. And the king was head over heels with this nice son. So much so that the queens that didn't have a son, they were envious of the one that had a son. So they got together and conspired, let's poison the son. And that's what they did. And so the son died. The son's dead. The king was when the wife came, and then she screamed when she saw in the crib, ah, the son's dead. When she screamed so loud, the king heard, and he came running, and there's the king is in the blue robe there, and his wife, Krita Duty, I believe that was her name. So he cried and cried and cried, and she cried and cried, and the other wives, they pretended they were crying also, but they murdered the little boy. And at that particular time, as the painting shows, Angira has that little beard. He's a sadhu, but with a beard. And then there's Narada, we all recognize because he has his celebrated Veena with him. So he saw the scene. Narada saw the scene, and he had a little conversation with the father, Chitraketu, and Chitraketu couldn't think straight. He was just, the grief was too much. So Narada spoke to the son and said, my dear boy, just see how your father is grieving so much. Why don't you come back and accept him again as your father, and he'll be happy instead of miserable like this? So the boy sat up, came out of death, and didn't look at anybody else, just looked at Narada. and had a little conversation with Narada, a little baby in his crib, giving transcendental knowledge to Narada, saying, "Why have you brought me here? And who could say who my father is? How many fathers have I had? So many, 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 many fathers. Who's my real father? I was just with my real father, the eternal supreme personality of Godhead. I want to go back." So he laid back down, and that was it. And everyone was, whoa, Narada's powerful. And then comes another nice little section. Narada then chanted prayers to Narayana, who exists as the Chaturvyuha, and instructed Chitraketu about the Supreme Lord, who creates, maintains, and annihilates everything, and who is the master of material nature. After instructing King Chitraketu in this way, playing his veena, Narada took off, leaving Chitraketu standing alone, like with his mouth hanging open. Like, what just happened? My son died, and now he's brought back to life, and now Narada's telling me about the spiritual world, and he's gone. So what's Chitraketu going to do? These instructions about the absolute truth are called Maha Vidya. Vidya means knowledge. Maha means great, great knowledge. So there's mantras connected with the knowledge, and he began to chant the mantra, the Mahavidya teachings in mantra form. And after 1 week, he attained the presence of Lord Sankarshan. That was pretty quick. 1 week? Chant japa intensely, and who knows what'll happen. Who was surrounded by the 4 Kumaras. And there's a nice painting. Chitraketu is kneeling. There's the 4 Kumaras. And there's Lord Sankarshan. There's a description in this chapter. Chitraketu offered his obeisances and began to offer prayers. And after his prayers, in his prayers, he describes Lord Sankarshan as the source of millions and millions of universes. And those millions of universes rest in the pores of his skin. And he is unlimited, having no beginning and no end, and so forth. Those prayers are right in the Bhagavatam. And by the worship of Lord Sankarshan, there's further description, but this is just focusing on Narada. Narada gave him that gift. He freed Chitraketu from the material obsession. I got to have a son, I got to have a son. And he went beyond that to his being able to perceive the personality of Godhead face to face and have conversation with him. Narada is very powerful. This is a nice painting of Narada giving instructions to Krishna's father in Dwarka. We heard earlier, but Narada visited Dwarka because he could travel anywhere with his Veena. And one of the places he wanted to see is how is Krishna keeping himself in Dwarka with so many queens, etc., etc. So when he went to Dwarka, one of the VIP persons he met with was Krishna's father. So there's a nice painting. And he had instructions to assist his father further and further in the process of devotion. This is a very old style painting. On the upper left, this is Narada paying a visit to Valmiki in his ashram. And you can tell it's his ashram because there's deer and, they're off in the forest. And there were some other sages present. And on the right, Valmiki is giving some dakshin to Narada. And in the upper right, there goes Narada back to the next destination. So Narada, was one of the spiritual masters of Valmiki. And most of you know, or maybe all of you know, Valmiki was the author or composer of Ramayana. The celebrated best of all the Ramayana versions is Valmiki Ramayana. and Narada was his spiritual master. There's details and details of the instructions he gave. Here's a hunter. His name is Mrigari, the hunter. And Narada was passing through a forest one time, and he saw animals that were half killed with arrows stuck in them. And he saw another animal, another half killed animals. So he was like disturbed. What is this? So he found out the cause. There was this hunter who Narada stopped him and said, why are you doing like this? Narada said, if you're a hunter by trade, okay, but don't half kill animals because they suffer. Really? They suffer? Yes, and not only they suffer because you're suffering so much, you're going to have to suffer like them. Really? The law of karma? My father never taught me this. He taught me how to half kill animals, but didn't say that they suffer and I'll have to suffer similar suffering. He said, yeah. And what are you going to do about all the suffering that you've created? Well, I'll ask my wife if she can share my suffering. He went back to his wife. She, no way. Share your suffering. No way. So I went back to Narada. What to do? This is my livelihood. How am I supposed to maintain my wife and family? So Narada said, no problem. Here's my recommendation. If you follow my instructions, everything will be all right. Going forward in time, you give up your profession of killing animals half. You can stop being a hunter altogether, for that matter. You go back to your ashram, your little cottage where you stay with your wife and children, and I will maintain you personally. But on one condition, you got to break your bow. He looked at his bow and looked at Narada, looked at his bow and looked at Narada, and he broke his bow. And he went back to his ashram, and sure enough, the hunter, who is this celebrated wicked guy, has now become a renouncer by the influence of Narada. The village people, because he was out in the forest, but the village people heard, and they decided he's become a sadhu. Let's go make some offerings to him. So they made so many offerings, he had to distribute it to others, because he's now this sadhu instead of a hunter. So later, Narada wanted to pay a visit to his new disciple, the hunter, Mrigari, who's no longer a hunter. And he brought with him another sage, Angira. So when they went to visit, you see the cottage in the background of the painting? And there was a little path, and he saw Narada coming. Oh, Narada Muni. He came running, but there were some ants in the path, so he took his upper garment off and was brushing the ants aside, because now he who was half killing animals didn't want to harm an ant. So down on his hands and knees and brushing them aside. And Angira said, just see the power of your giving bhakti to others. The man who was delight was half killing animals now doesn't want to harm an ant. Another audience, there's the sons of Daksha. There's a long description, but the Haryashvas and Sabalashvas, and you can see there's a lot of them. Narada, by his giving devotion to the Supreme so clearly, that they left behind their fruitive ambitions, their material ambitions, and accepted the life of pure devotion. And their father didn't like it at all. So he cursed Narada. You won't be able to stay in one place for more than a few minutes. Oh, thank you very much. That's the benediction for a sannyasi. Now here's a nice detail, not so well known, but one of the persons who Narada instructed was the wife, the first wife of Krishna, named Rukmini. And Rukmini had, with Krishna, had one son whose name was Pradyumna. And so when visiting in Dwarka, Narada gave some explanation to Rukmini who her son was in his previous life. And her son in his previous life was Kamadeva, or Cupid, and he had been burned to ashes once when he was trying to agitate Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva didn't like it, so he glanced at him, and with his glance, he turned him into ashes. So that was the end of Pradyumna. And this very same Pradyumna that was burnt into ashes, Cupid personified, was burnt into ashes. He, the soul, later became merged with an incarnation of the Chaturvyuha, and he then became the son of Rukmini. Pradyumna, who took birth from the womb of Vaidarbhi, that's Rukmini, by the seed of Lord Krishna, was a combination of the original Pradyumna from the spiritual world and the jiva soul of the incinerated Cupid. Interesting. Very interesting. There's a description that one of the students of Narada was a cobra. This is a 5-headed cobra. And Narada, the cobra became so attracted to Narada, he wanted instruction. Narada said, don't bite people. So when the village people found out that the cobra wasn't going to bite them anymore, they started tormenting and taunting and throwing sticks and stones. And sometime later, Narada was met up with the cobra, and the cobra was complaining. People found out that I won't bite them anymore, so they're torturing me. What to do? Narada said, I didn't say you couldn't show your hoods. You show your hoods and your tongue comes out, you make that sound, and people will run away. They won't bother you anymore. Don't bite them. Doesn't mean you can't show your hoods. That's another Narada Muni story. And then finally, a very interesting description is found in the Puranas, where Narada Muni was traveling one time and he met a Brahmana. You all know the story. Most of you know the story. So the Brahmana was very pleased. Oh, Narada, where are you going? I'm going to meet the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Oh, really? Could you ask Lord Vishnu a question on my behalf? Sure. What would you like to know? How many more lifetimes will it take before I return to the spiritual world? Sure, I can ask. And then later, he met a cobbler. The story tells he was sitting underneath a banyan tree, and his cobbler's business is he repairs shoes, makes shoes and repairs shoes. So the cobbler is not a laudable profession. It's not an honorable profession. It's kind of an unclean, moochy profession. So the cobbler asked a similar question. Sure, I'll ask. How many lifetimes before you go back to the spiritual world? And when Narada got to be with Lord Vishnu and glorified Lord Vishnu and singing the glories of Vishnu with his veena and received very nicely by Lord Vishnu. You please me very much by so much devotion that you have. Is there something I can do for you? Yes. I have these 2 questions. And he gave the answer. Vishnu said, tell the cobbler in his very next lifetime he's coming back to me. And tell the Brahmana, I don't know how many lifetimes before he comes back to me. Really? Could you? Yes. Here's what you can. If they ask, the Brahmana is not going to believe. And he'll ask you, oh, really? You saw Lord Vishnu and said these things. What was he doing? You can tell the Brahmana that you saw me stringing an elephant to the eye of a needle or the head of a needle. Elephant through the head of a needle. No such thing. Tell him. And he'll say, oh, you didn't go to Lord Vishnu. This is all stories. And you say the same thing to the cobbler to see what his reaction is. So when he went back and saw the Brahmana first, the Brahmana didn't like the idea. No, you didn't go see Lord Vishnu. Tell me what he was doing. He had an elephant and he was stringing the elephant like thread to the eye of a needle. Oh, right. You didn't see Lord Vishnu. And when he came to the cobbler accepted. After this life, oh, my Lord is so merciful. What was he doing when you saw him? And he told him what he was doing, stringing an elephant through the eye of a needle. He said, he is so wonderful. And Narada said, how can you accept that? The cobbler said, I'm sitting under a banyan tree. In this banyan tree, here's a banyan seed. And from the banyan seed inside, there's hundreds of other seeds. And each seed is a banyan tree, not yet developed. So if he can put so many banyan trees inside this little seed, certainly can string an elephant through the eye of a needle. He's all powerful. He can do anything. He is my great Lord. So because of his faith, the cobbler was ready to go to the spiritual world. And the lack of faith, although polished in this way, that way, not ready. Who can say how many lifetimes for that fellow? So that's a little bit about the life of Narada, the glories of Narada, those persons who he gave shelter to, gave bhakti with his bhakti shakti from the Supreme Lord. Finally, in our Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. So Srivas, one of the principal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in Krishna's Leela is Narada Muni. They're not different. So Srivas Pandit had previously been Narada Muni. So this is a photograph of the deity of Srivas in Mayapur on our left side. And then there's some neem deities of Panchatattva. And there he is in a nice dancing pose with his arms raised, glorifying. So for those of you who came a little bit late, I'm not going to go back and do it again. But you can hear the recording. And what this visit specifically was intended to do was to expand on personalities from Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam and some of their glories and some of the details of their lives. So maybe next time we can carry on with additional personalities. It's a nice topic. Very nice topic. Very wonderful personality. Very important. They appear in the first canto because of their prominence. Of course, there are others that appear later, but just like Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, they appear later. But we heard a little bit about them because of Narada, who was the spiritual master of these great personalities. So let's see if there's some discussion. It's only 7:35. Wow. Nice to start a little bit early. I'll share this with you. Before coming here to Austin, I was in Phoenix. And before I was in Phoenix, I didn't know, but I found out after being there for a little bit that before I was there in Phoenix, there was another sannyasi that was there for like 10 days. And he was always 45 minutes late for programs. So they got used to, I'm not late for programs. And then I said, next time I visit Phoenix, programs don't say they're going to start at 7 and then start at 7:45. They're going to start at 6:30 and start at 6:30. If you want to come late, you can come late. It's okay. But it's going to start at 6:30. Because some of us that are in the sannyas ashram and some that aren't in this, I know grahastas, they like getting up early and chanting early and doing sadhana early and reading early and doing their deity worship early. And I'm I'm the early type. But after a number of years, it gives, because sadhana is best in the early morning hours. Like this morning, I was up before 3 o'clock. And that's a nice schedule. Let's see what happens for tomorrow morning, because, maybe it'll be 2:30. But, getting up early to bed, early to rise, you know the phrase? It makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. But, we're not interested in healthy, wealthy, or wise. We're interested in Krishna Bhakti. The best Brahma Muhurta hour is the best. And, even before Brahma Muhurta hour. Like, what did Prabhupada do? He was up early. And he would chant, and then he would do his translation work while we were, zonked out upstairs. He was serving us. Fortunately for us, he was serving us. So, future visits, this is what I said in Phoenix. If you want to invite me for a home program, fine, 6:30. And if you don't like 6:30, don't invite me for a program. They said, I got some feedback later because this other fellow was late, and it was very difficult for their household life to get to bed so late, and then prasadam and everything. So 6:30. And if you want to come after that, whatever the reason is, fine. Any discussion? Here's a little princess. She's a very active one.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, my question is, I don't know if I missed it, if you already said. When was Narada Muni there? Like, he was there in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, like all the yugas he was there. So
Well,
when
he's there for the duration of one life of Brahma, which could be one day of Brahma. So how many yuga cycles is there in a day of Brahma? A lot, right? So he's there for all of them. There's some living entities have, it's called Chiran Jiva. They live a long lifespan. He's one of them.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have a follow-up question. So in his previous life, he was not Narada Muni, right? So who was Narada Muni in that yuga, if he was not there?
You got me. I don't know. I don't know. Huh? No, her question is, when in a previous day of Brahma, he was Upabarana. So her question is, who was Narada when he was Upabarana? You understand the question? Now? No? There's a different day of Brahma. There's somebody carrying the Bhakti Shakti of Lord Krishna during that day of Brahma when he was Upabarana. So her question is, who was Narada during that Upabarana period? That previous, so it wasn't our present Narada, that's for sure, because he was somebody else. I'm waiting for the scream. Whimper, whimper, scream. There we go.
Thank you much.
So Guru Maharaj, does each universe has its own Narada, like Brahma and others?
I don't know if there was the same name as Narada as during this particular day of Brahma, but someone carrying that potency of Bhakti Shakti, whatever his name was, there's someone carrying Bhakti Shakti during each day of Brahma because he is assisting Brahma who is assisting Krishna. That's your question?
Yes.
So different name. I touched on this the other day, but I'll do it again. Just like during this little discussion this evening, there was mention of Narayana. Narayana, we heard during the Thanksgiving retreat in Houston, there's a whole section just on Narayana. And Narayana have their origin. Their origin is Krishna and Arjuna. And there's descriptions, detailed descriptions by our predecessor acharyas indicating just as Krishna and Arjuna are present, but they're not always in the name of Krishna and Arjuna. For example, Narayana, or expansion of Krishna and Arjuna, Narayana, and then many, many, many others by other names. And similarly, this is Jiva Goswami explaining that as Krishna can expand, Arjuna can expand. Do that again, please. Sure. Just as Krishna can expand, Arjuna can expand. So that expansion, how Krishna expands is one unlimitedness way, and Arjuna can expand by a manifestation or partial expansion of him, or a partial incarnation of Arjuna by some other name. And it's a speciality of an eternal associate of Krishna. They can expand according to the need of service for Krishna. They can expand. So that's kind of a mind-blowing concept. But just as Krishna was Narayan, Krishna and Arjuna Narayan, so also similarly, I've not read anything that says it's like this, but Narada Muni in another day of Brahma may not be called Narada Muni, but someone bearing Bhakti Shakti, a jiva bearing Bhakti Shakti, it doesn't have to be the same jiva. It's the Bhakti Shakti being invested in someone who acts on behalf of the Supreme Lord to give bhakti to others in this super incredible way. So we know about ours. Now the question is, what about other ages? Like when Upabarana was Upabarana, who was the Narada at that time? By some other name, doesn't have to be the same name. It doesn't have to have the same, vina, the same features. Our Narada has those features. It's mind expanding. Like, so much like it's going to burst or something. But, the personality of Godhead is unlimited. And unlimited means unlimited. He can expand and he can empower others and expand the power of others, however, according to his plan, according to his inspiration. And, how big is the Mula Ramayana? 1 billion verses. We have 24,000. What's a Ramayana that's 1 billion verses? We have just a smidgen. The unlimited can expand unlimitedly. No problem. Effortless. And he can, and to say it again, he can arrange for those eternal associates of his to expand also, to assist him. No problem. No, we're still back on thinking we're the body. So, like, bodies don't expand like that. Bodies don't have that power. The soul within has power. And that's who we are. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The king that had 10 million wives and couldn't have a boy, was he granted to have a boy because he had pious activities, or why?
Didn't have a voice.
Boy, like a child, like a male child.
Oh, male
then
child.
he had
boy,
one.
boy. Okay. Yeah, it was a plan. And the Supreme Lord is not required to have us stamp our foot and he has to jump because we stamped our foot. He's not an order supplier. So there was a lesson for Chitraketu. If the Lord has a plan, fine. And if he doesn't have a plan, fine. But he wasn't ready for that. No, it's got to be my plan. And Angira said, you're going to be sorry that it's not the Lord's plan. Don't you get it? It's not the Lord's plan. I don't want to. Okay. Here's a fruit. You have a son. You'll be sorry. It's like going to the material world, and I was expecting sukha, and I got dukkha.
Thank you.
The Lord's plan is come with me to the spiritual world. And if we don't accept that, we have our wish list. You have something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question around so when we say transcendental body, is it like empowered beings provided, like a normal material body provided with, who is empowered with the
No.
potency, or is it?
No. The other way around. Here's Prabhupada. Two things that Prabhupada said like over and over. Prabhupada went to college. You know that? And the college that he went to was a Christian college, Scottish Churches College. So he learned the Bible in Scottish Churches College, because that's what you do when you go to Christian college. And from the Bible, he learned man is created in the image of God. Man is created in the image of God. So Prabhupada would say 2 arms, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 heads, 1 head, 1 head, 1 face, 1 face. So because God has, so we have. The body is created, the soul isn't created. So there's stages of evolution of consciousness that go from aquatic life to plant life to the different species, bugs and insects and aquatic, so animals, and then 2-legged animals, and then human. So man, the human form, is created in the image of God. So within the body, there's the form of the soul. And just like you're wearing a sweater, so am I. So the sweater is in the shape of your body. The covering is in the shape of what's inside the covering. Similarly, the body is a covering of the soul. The body in the human form, by consciousness evolution, there's 2 hands, 2 legs, etc. form. But that's the covering. the covering takes the shape of what's inside the covering. And then, so you're back to your question. What's the form of the soul? Depends on the species, because of consciousness, depends on the consciousness determines the species. But in the human form, there's what a human form, what the body looks like. The body looks like what the soul is. Man is created in the image of God. And the difficulty is we're too much stuck on the body identification. And it's hard to get past it because we're stuck. Now, you want to say something more?
My question was a little different, Maharaj.
Little different. Okay.
Yes.
You're patient then.
Sorry, my question was like, we call Brahma and all as demigods, right? So when they are demigods, how is their body transcendental?
How does their body is not transcendental. The body is material. The body of the demigods is material, are material. The bodies are material. They give them up and they go somewhere else.
Okay, so in one of the slides, it was mentioned transcendental. In one of the slides.
Okay, I don't recall what this slide said, but bodies of demigods are material.
Okay.
They, as we give up ours, they give up theirs.
Okay. So in that case, when Brahmadev is giving birth to the avatars who are spiritual, they are higher transcendental.
Their forms are not ordinary, but they're not spiritual.
Yeah.
Brahma can't give spiritual because he's not spiritual.
Okay. Yeah.
He can give material. He creates a universe that's not spiritual. He creates a universe that's material. And bodies that are material.
Right.
He has material powers. He has like super duper material powers, but they're material powers. The universe itself, it dissipates. It's temporary.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, so in one of the
Aren't you
earlier...
glad we left a lot of time for questions? This is a good questioning group. I like it. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Maharaj, you mentioned that we aspire to be a servant of like eternal associates of Krishna. So is like when we are chanting, if we think of like Narada Muni's pastimes, is that okay, Maharaj, in the sense that like would we be a servant of like Narada Maharaj? Narada Muni?
Why not? You know, we're far from being qualified, but aspire. Why not? He's a Vaishnav. He's the superlative Vaishnav. Aspire to serve a superlative Vaishnav. Why not? We're far away, but do something so he'll smile. And one of the things that he likes to do is give bhakti. So you just roll up your sleeves and rub your hands together and try to give bhakti. But you have to have it to give it. You have to cultivate it. And then in the mood of Narada, you give.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And then in our lives, that's Srivas Pandit is giving Krishna Bhakti amongst the associates of Lord Chaitanya. So you can also think of him and serve him. And as he is serving the personality of Godhead, giving bhakti to others. Someone else? Yes.
Yes, Maharaj. So today I was doing a prayer before the altar.
Uh-huh.
And then there was a fly that was bothering me for 10 minutes.
A fly?
Yeah, it's like, so I wanted to, want to catch it so I can release it, but accidentally it got crushed between my fingers and it didn't die and it is crawling towards the altar. So it disturbed me a lot, my prayers, and then I was doing that, and then almost, I mean, I'm sure I killed many of flies and ants in the before and all, but so I felt that, okay, so I didn't intend to kill it, but I literally hurt the fly. So is that even without intention is doing it is acquired sin?
What was the punchline of your question? Even not intentionally, is there sin? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, from your description, it doesn't sound unintentional. It sounded like you. Then what are your alternatives besides the not intentional swatting?
No, that maybe I can just, it'll go away or just maybe.
Okay, and you did it for 10 minutes. And he was bothering you for 10 minutes. So that happens to all of us. What are your options? And the punchline of your question is, even if unintentional, the answer is even if. So Prabhupada's example, you're walking on the sidewalk. You cannot walk on the sidewalk. But if you walk on the sidewalk, some sidewalks may have little creatures. Or you breathe and there's microbes in the air, or et cetera, et cetera. So that's the unintentional kind. And then the answer to your question, Prabhupada's answer to your question is, if you're engaged in service to Krishna, then there's benefit that goes to that living entity, not a sin that comes to you. The key, the operative principle is, are you in the service of Krishna or not? Is the service of me or the service of Krishna? Who's at the center? There's in front, there's I think our last question.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Danat Pranam. My question is, why demigods wanted to kill Kayadu's baby? They were the demigods, right? They were not demons. Why only Narada Muni got this feeling that I should save her?
So your question is, why did the demigods curse Upabarhana to become a Shudra? That's your question, or no?
No.
No.
My question is, why you told in the slide that demigods came and they wanted to kill the son of Kayadu.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And
because Hiranyakashipu Jr.
yes, that is sure. But they were not the demons. They were the demigods. They have this sukriti that this is right and this is wrong.
Yeah, I don't think they're ethical demigods.
Okay.
We're in the same boat. They didn't have any right to kill because he's the son. Sorry, that's not a demigod disposition, but that's what their plan was.
Yeah.
So is it right or wrong? That's your question.
Yes.
Yes. I can't see that that's right, because he's a son of Hiranyakashipu and Kayadu. You kill him. I don't think that's a proper behavior for anyone, but speak of a demigod.
Yeah, but why only Narad Muni got this feeling that I should stop it?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he
So
did.
he's a Vaishnav. He wasn't an upstart demigod. Okay?
Thank you.
We're in the same boat. We agree with one another. Okay, we're going to end there. Now, you want to say something? Thank you, short note. Okay. Oh, literally, this is a note?
No, not that. Be next to you. That's okay.
Oh.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for your beautiful narrations on the great personalities of Srimad Bhagavatam during this visit in Austin. The way you highlighted their qualities and connect them